Look how amazing these buttons look after refurbishing this master switch. It's so awesome because we didn't have to replace the entire thing. The before, all peeled, flaked, and after. How amazing. How's it going, my SAAB friends? My name is Gary and this is my channel, Weakest of Weeks. If you're a first-time viewer, I appreciate you clicking on the video and definitely consider subscribing. I have a ton of how-to videos out there and especially SAAB-related videos. Today we're going to be resolving a super common issue found on any new Gen 9.3 that's 2003 to 2011/2012. And the issue that we're going to be resolving today has to deal with the flaking window switch buttons that are now found on just about any SAAB 9.3 out there now, just due to the age. And hopefully today we're going to resolve that on the cheap, so stay tuned. Here are the peeling switches on my US spec Fusion Blue Metallic 0893 Aero. And unfortunately, this is just all too common nowadays with the age of these vehicles, with these buttons peeling. Now they have this rubberized coating over top of it, but now they are fading and peeling. So you can get a touch-up marker, touch these ends up. Can kind of look good whenever it's just the ends peeled, but once you're in a situation where this window lockout switch is peeling as bad as it is, there's just really no saving this. Now, on the passenger side, as well as the rear sections here, they use a smaller switch, which still can peel because it is some form of a rubberized coating, but usually they just chip here and there, but definitely not as bad as, say, a master switch like this. And when you think about it, this switch, out of all of them in the vehicle, is going to get used more so than the rest. So this will show the most amount of wear compared to the others. And to clarify, when I say use the most amount as far as switches, I mean window switches. Obviously, say the radio is probably the most used switch in the vehicle, but when we're talking about window switches, clearly the driver window switch, this master switch here, is going to be the most used out of all of these other ones. So what we'll do to resolve this, we're going to remove this piece right here to access the two torque screws behind there. We'll get a trim removal tool. We'll use a little pressure, pop off this door panel, get in behind this door panel, and that'll give us access to show you the repair. Before we tear into this to remove this master switch, it's important to mention that there's two main options when it comes to the window switch and the window regulator for your new Gen 9.3. This being the higher tier model, the Aero model, it has what's called the anti-pinch protection window system. Now, as far as I know, all new Gen 9.3s have the auto down function, and it may be hard to see here because the window is not tinted, but if you're wondering what the anti-pinch protection is, it's simply auto up. And what it is once it goes up and it hits your hand, instead of continuing up where it would pinch your hand in the window frame, it, as a safety feature, touches your hand and then it automatically goes back down. So this specific repair doesn't matter whether you have the anti-pinch protection or not, because we're not replacing this entire master window switch. But say if you were to replace the entire switch or the window regulator behind here, you'll definitely need to know whether you have that option or not. And if you're not 100% certain, go ahead, click up top in the right here. And I've previously done a video on doing a VIN search, so you can drill down and figure out whether you have the anti-pinch protection system or not. So now that we know everything works exactly how it should before disassembly, in theory, after the repair, it should clearly work just like it did before we disassembled it. So this is just kind of a precautionary measure to check that everything works before we disassemble it. That way, if anything were to come up, then we can kind of retrace our steps. So now that everything works, we know it works, we're good to start disassembly by removing this plastic panel. Not sure that there's an easy way to remove this plastic thing. It is just held in with pressure, but it is sort of a nightmare sometimes to remove. But what I do is get my fingers underneath here, lift up, and there's a lip right here, lifts up, and then you just kind of work around. Then it's held in right down here. Never really comes off gracefully, but here's sort of what it looks like. I mean, everything's one giant lip and it's all held in with pressure. So lift up, kind of wiggle it, and then it eventually comes off. That exposes the two T27 torque screws. If you're not 100% certain what a torque screw is, it takes a socket like such. For now, I left the 2 screws in here. You can get a small magnetic tool and fish them out, but I'm not too worried about it. Once we get this door panel off, they'll fall out. Now I have a trim removal tool. We'll try to start at the very bottom here, and we'll just kind of stick it in there. Push towards yourself. That gives you access to get your hand in behind here. And every so often, you'll just pull towards yourself. Next up, you just need to lift up. Make sure you clear over top of this lock arm. And then I'm going to tilt it forward a little bit. That way the 2 T27 torque screws fall out. Next up, we need to get in behind this door panel and remove the door lock cable. Here is in behind the door handle, and this is where the cable goes from the door lock to the actual handle. So once you open the handle up to exit the vehicle from inside, moves this cable, tugs on it, releases the door. So to remove it, you really don't need any special tools. I just kind of push up on it. You see there's a clip here and a clip on the opposing side, and really you just pull up on it and it releases. Then this metal cable, it's kind of angled a bit, and that's what just keeps it into place. So it's kind of awkward to maneuver it out of here, but you just kind of wiggle it in a couple different directions, and then eventually it should work itself out of the handle. So not the easiest thing, it's definitely awkward, but with a little bit of work, a little bit of wiggling, it eventually comes out. Next up on the list is removal of the switches that go into the master window switch. So underneath you have this clip right here, this electrical connector. This one proves sometimes to be very difficult. It kind of corrodes in here and gets stuck. So what I recommend doing, get a flathead screwdriver, push in on here and kind of wiggle back and forth a bit, and also kind of pull on the actual cable itself, and eventually it releases. But this is the little tang that you need to push in. Sometimes you get lucky, you just need to push this in and it wiggles out nicely, but sometimes you get corrosion in here and it really freezes up in there. Now this next one is a little tricky. So what we need to do to remove this one, it has a lever, and we need to push down on this gray tab. Then that gives us the ability to lift up on this arm, and while we lift up on this, it actually releases that clip. So we push down on this tab, then the arm should clear it. Push it all the way forward, wiggle it back and forth. There you go. 2 electrical clips into the master switch, removed. And if your 9.3 has the option to where it has the light inside the door panel that once you open up the door, it casts light onto the ground, you're going to have this additional harness here. So we'll go ahead, wiggle this back and forth, releases this harness. There's a tab here, tab there, push both ends in, wiggle it, and it releases. Now with these electrical connectors removed, as well as the cable that goes into the door, well then that totally removes the door panel. Gives us perfect access to remove this master window switch. Here's the back side of the door panel. The window switch right there. We'll focus in on it. What we're going to do is take a T15 torque socket, remove this little screw. Now this should not be tight enough to really need any force, if anything. Like, you definitely don't need a ratchet to remove it, and certainly you don't need a ratchet whenever you reinstall it, but remove that little guy right there. Now we have a tab here, tab right where we remove that screw, tab right here, and a tab on the front side. I don't know the exact procedure, the best way to remove this, because it is extremely difficult. There's not a lot of room right here, and it's very easy when it comes to reinstallation to scratch up the new rubberized buttons. So we need to be as careful as possible. Removing it, you don't have to be as graceful if you're replacing the buttons like this repair is going to showcase, but obviously when it comes to putting it all back together, we want to do it as safely as possible without scratching things. So we'll go ahead, we'll get our fingernail and screwdriver in behind here, and we'll just kind of work our way around to release this. Here you can see the old nasty peeling buttons. And if you're wondering as far as part number for the anti-pinch, It ends in the 2023 number. That signifies you have the anti-pinch, or at least the anti-pinch master window switch. And if it does not have the anti-pinch function, usually it is a 2063, the last four. This is the switch that we just removed. Now, if you're planning to replace the switch in its entirety, this is where you just reinstall or start the reinstallation process. I will admit I'm extremely fortunate to have a junkyard local to me that frequently has SAAB. So what I ended up pulling from the junkyard is another master window switch. Difference being is this one is not only not the entire switch, but it's also from a non-anti-pinch model 9.3. So while I am extremely lucky that SAABs are in the junkyard near me, unfortunately they're usually not arrows, or they normally don't have the anti-pinch functionalities. If they were, I probably would have taken the entire switch. This, just being the top portion of it, only cost me $5.99. That's right, $6 for this plastic piece, and I'm proposing to simply remove this top portion, put this non-anti-pinch button set in place of my current window switch with the anti-pinch. So what that does is it retains the electronics that are functioning perfectly, and I get these really nice buttons for cheap. It's extremely simple. Just get your flat blade screwdriver. There's multiple tabs along the side. We'll work our way around. And I'm keeping pressure on this connector, just downward pressure. So now all of these on the sides are released. We'll flip it over, do the same thing on the opposite side here. Okay, so we'll do it this way. Lift up. This is what we're left with. So the electronics for the anti-pinch, that will retain. The faded buttons that were original to the switch, we'll ditch that, set it to the side. The new used button set from the non-anti-pinch 9.3. And we just simply set it in there. Push down, make sure all these little tabs lock into place. Go ahead and press the buttons. All right, there you have it. So now it's just reassembly. For reinstallation of the refurbished master window switch, important to note there's a tab here. These are the two tabs along the side and the one tab in the back. Kind of ignore that, that's just a little dirty. The actual tab is right there. But the most important thing to pay attention for is this crossbar right there that falls right in between the buttons right there. So if you force this into place or you get it at the wrong angle, this bar will actually peel your new buttons. So definitely do not force this into place. Be extra cautious and make sure you have the perfect angle. So before we put this into place, get something like some painter's tape, something especially not like duct tape or anything like that. Painter's tape is great because the adhesive isn't as sticky as, say, normal masking tape or especially duct tape. So we'll put a little tape on the end here. That way, if it does run into that crossbar, it's just going to glide across this tape. So I'm going to push this up to where this tab with that screw that we removed is kind of resting on this bar, kind of angles it upwards, gives us a little more space. Take this rubber guy, push it down, and we'll try to finesse this in as best as possible. Okay, so now you can see this side's in, back side's in. You probably can't see it, but the front side's in. Well, where that tab is that we pushed up, now we need to flip this door panel over, lift it up, and kind of snake it back where we can place that bolt back into place. So here's that tab that we need to lift up and push in and then back down. There we go. It's a little tricky, but it looks like it's back into place. Put this door panel back over. And it looks like all the tabs are in where they need to be. Two sides, back, as well as the front. This side piece with that screw is lined up now, and we're good to refasten the T15 Torx like such. And don't do it too tight, so just use the actual socket, and like for me, using this 1/4" extension, that's tight enough. This is in place. Well, looks like the back came out, so that's good. Clip this in here. That way that's good to go. We'll flip it back over. Double check the buttons. Good to go. And we can remove the safety tape that we put on here. Now for full reinstallation of these electrical clips, not that difficult. Clips into place. Now this one with the lever, it's the back side of the switch, placed down like that, and then once you push the lever down, locks it in. Make sure the lever is over top of that little tab. Now this electrical connector is the one in the back. This tab is facing rearmost. Line it in, push into place, locks in like such. Next up on the list is this door cable. As you can see, it's got this angular portion. And if you notice right here, if I pull on the inside of the door lever, this arm moves. So we need to snake this cable inside that loop to get in that hole. Best to go from the top down. And as you can see, now that's locked in. So it's probably hard to see, but there's actually kind of a tab. So this tab in the center needs to go directly into the center of this channel right there. You just push down, you'll get a couple satisfying clicks. Make sure everything's locked in. We're good. Now we're good to reinstall this door panel. Now we're ready to rehang the door panel, but one thing to note, if you broke any clips upon removal of this door panel, now's the perfect time to replace it. So on the 08 and up, I believe you have these yellow clips on the back side of this door panel. If it's 2007 downward to 2003, typically you have this style white clip on the back side of this door panel, and then you have pins like such all throughout the entire thing. But being a 2008, the newer facelifted models, you only have those pin styles at the top here and here, whereas the rest of the door panel uses these plastic clips. But regardless, if you break the clips, now's a good time to replace it. Otherwise, you may have door rattle issues in the future. So make sure you have the door lock upwards. You get it through that hole here. We'll push the top door panel up top here, hang it kind of on the window channel right there, and you'll tell when it's in place because it just hangs there. And now literally all we have to do is push along the sides here, starting kind of towards the top, working our way down, then working our way around again, just making sure all those tabs are locked into place. Nice and tight. You really don't have to be gentle with it. Once you're confident in those tabs being locked in, you can reattach the 2 Torx screws in this door handle. And these you will want to snug down with a ratchet because there's a lot of force on this door handle, but you don't need to torque these so bad to where they strip out, just enough to where whenever you pull on the door handle, there's no give to it. Next up is this, honestly, this kind of stupid plastic piece. I hate it. There is I think a Hirsch makes a leather portion of it, or there's another aftermarket company that does. The leather version is so much nicer than this plastic. I mean, I hate how this looks, and eventually I would like to upgrade it to the leather. But right now, I'm just kind of sticking with what I have. There is the lip up top and the two kind of tabs there. So we'll drape this over. We'll start by locking it into the top, and then just simply pushing down and kind of wrapping your hand around and crimping it. And you know when it's locked in because it's not going to move. If it's still wiggling, keep going around and giving it pressure, and then it should lock in. Here is the grand finale, making sure these switches work. So go ahead, hit auto down. That portion still works exactly like it should. Auto up. Oh, uh-oh.
Jinkies, jeepers,
Mistakes were made. So before you do this, learn from my mistake. Unhook the battery before you disconnect the window switch. Otherwise, you're going to have to reprogram with a Tech 2 the anti-pinch functionality if you have it. So learn from my mistake. Definitely unhook the battery before you start working on your SAAB. I forgot how finicky these electronics are, but fortunately for me, I do have a Tech 2 scanner. And we'll go ahead and go to Diagnostics, 2008-93, because that's what this vehicle is. Go to Body, Power Windows, Driver Door. Point of mention, I do have security access. Go to Adjustments and learn anti-pinch. So we just need to sit here and let it do its process till it's finished. Go ahead and test it. Look at that. Now working like it should. Proof of concept here. This is the old faded peeling switch. Here is the new replacement portion that we just cobbled up together, but we have the auto down. Now, after the programming, we'll test the auto up. There you go. Anti-pinch function is working exactly like it should. The lockout switch is lighting up. We'll test the other switches. Obviously, you can't see them, but you might be able to hear them. And they are functioning exactly how they should. We'll make sure they go up. The backs do not have the auto up. Yep, everything functions exactly how it did before we disassembled it. Look how amazing these buttons look after refurbishing this master switch. It's so awesome because we didn't have to replace the entire thing. The before, all peeled, flaked, and after. How amazing. And I understand not everybody has availability to a junkyard close by that they can harvest just this one specific piece from the window switch. But what this repair shows that you can do is you can buy a window switch off eBay, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, hopefully potentially for cheap, non-working, just for parts. If the buttons are in good shape, whether it's anti-pinch or not, you can buy it, harvest the parts off it, and install on your master switch to keep it in tip-top shape. So that is going to wrap it up on today's video of the window switch refurbishment on my 0893 Aero. Now I do have my certified SAAB tech Prudence here. She's a little rather exhausted after doing a multi-point inspection, making sure everything is 100% roadworthy with my 08 Aero here now that we've done the window switch replacement. And realistically, not that a window switch replacement is going to affect drivability whatsoever, but it's always great to have a companion like Prudence here, and she definitely deserves some TREATSs, and she knows exactly what that word is. but she is such a great companion. Look at her back here. So you can't deny that face. So with that being said, definitely give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, if it helped you out. If you like SAAB stuff, how-to stuff, definitely consider subscribing because I have a ton of stuff out there. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, by all means, drop a comment down below. Or if you just want to say hi in the comment section, by all means, drop a comment. Love to hear from you. With that being said, I appreciate you watching, and I'll catch you friends next time.